This session brought to you by Odyssey Games for pre-orders and sealed product, CCG Prime for tons of singles and supplies, Cardo Doko for international rulers looking for product, and fowlibrary.com for articles and wonderful deck lists, as well as our guest lecturer members Vite Ramen, King Pearl Shine, and Mognite. Class is in session. Hey there, rulers. Welcome back to a new year of Force of Will here at your favorite ever live Force of Will podcast. It's Office Hours featuring myself, DMO73, and I'm joined as always by Mike Rance.
Happy 2023 Force of Will Tube.
And Paul Reisman.
Hello, Tube of Will.
Hello, everybody's here. We're in a new year. It's 2023.
Everyone is here.
The gang's all here. Just want to say a few things before we get started. If you want to consider supporting the channel and you like what we're doing, you can click that join button down below to join the channel as a member, and you can get access to all kinds of cool emotes. Like I'm going to have someone who's a member in the chat spam all the emotes real quick. You get access to those, as well as goes to help support the channel financially and gets you all kinds of other cool perks based on the level. I also do want to give a shout out to, they are in the chat, Ozdep Entertainment, who is a seller over on TCG Player, who hooked us up to help me get my last secret rare from this past set. So I finally have the full set of them. So thanks to Ozdep Entertainment. You can check a link to their TCG Player store down below to give them, check out and see if you got any singles you're looking for. Yeah, so that's it. Everything else, people spamming the what's your favorite emote? I think mine is favorite. My favorite is the Gil Lapis being like, "A."
Jeremy, you know mine.
One. Is it Valentina?
No, it's Valpog. Come on, it's
Valpog.
I chose the hyperfixation character in
That's
early.
True. You did choose the hyperfixation character. Yes.
Speaking of which, I don't think we've had a new emote since Saga Cluster.
Unfortunately, it's tied to membership, so like we need to get more members to be able to unlock more members.
Man, you'll need to pay $2.
So we have an emote prepped and ready, which is a Brad emote. But like Tess did a wonderful job making us a Brad emote, but we never unlocked it. So we're waiting on that getting unlocked. So
you're gonna do some work.
Get the Brad emote.
Let's make that a goal of 2023. Let's get the Brad emote by getting all the members
to
sign
two
up
new
so we
emotes.
can make that happen.
Members, I want two new emotes.
2 new emotes? Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, well, there you go. So we're going to talk about a couple things tonight. We're going to be talking about spoilers. We got the actual text on the 2 promos for the new set, the Buy a Box and the pre-release kit promo. And then we have some really, really big news and a lot to kind of talk about, break out from that news, which we'll get into in a little bit. So let's get started. We have our replicants, which is very seemingly going to be the mechanic of kind of Gil-looking character, we think, which is and the first one here is Replicant Scarlet, 1-drop 10/2 with swiftness, precision, pierce, and this card cannot attack your opponent. And then for 1 red, this card gains +200 and first strike until end of turn. It's a red removal spell, and Scarlet's back. Yeah. I don't really have many thoughts on this card. It just seems like a red removal spell to me.
It's a red card. No thoughts, head empty. Every US player is going to play and find out it's terrible. Just that's the way it always goes.
To me, the biggest takeaway. The biggest takeaway from the card. Yeah, to me, the biggest takeaway from this card is like just the replicant idea of like seeing our favorite VOW characters return, but it's not actually them. It's just like versions of them made from like the history of the world. Like, we've read stories about what Scarlet was like and we made a robot in her image, kind of thing. And like the artwork on this looks very, very, machine looking. It's very, very cool. And just that idea. Yeah, that's a very cool idea of like how to keep those characters, the vision of those characters still in the game while also being able to move on to new people. So that was pretty cool to me. Paul, any thoughts?
This is very much a board control card. It is not meant to be anything more, which is why it has that huge stat line. I think that's fine. Did red need a board control card? I don't know, but here
Probably
it is.
Not.
That being said, the art looks really good. Like before this, the promos have been kind of like, they look good, but the inset art looks usually a lot better. This already looks pretty decent to me, so I would not be like too upset, especially the giant wolf tail. That's hilarious. And notice that she's kind of like androidy. She's not like Yearsy. She's like androidy, which I think is interesting flavor wise.
Very, very true. I also really like the fact that like I think my biggest takeaway, what would make this card a lot better if it was a 10/4 instead of a 10/2, because a big card that we're seeing a lot of play right now was Windia. And Windia just looks at this card and goes, that's cute, kill it, like immediately. I mean, Windia would still answer this card if it was a 10/4 because Windia would just prevent all the damage, but it wouldn't be just a free kill it. It would just be stop her damage, which is better. Overall, though, my biggest takeaway from that card is just the artwork. I really just like the artwork of it more than anything else.
My question, why focal point of picture have to be feet?
Is that not obvious?
Paul, do you have something to tell?
It's
Anyway.
feet.
Let's move on to Replicant Scheherazade. So this is 1 green, 1
Kiki's in
one
the
green,
chat for Scarlet's feet.
Don't do that.
Something terrible. Something terrible is afoot in the chat.
We have 1 green, 1 colorless Replicant Scheherazade, 6/7. Card gains quick cast in all zones, and you may pay 1 void less to play this card if you played a card named the Sword of Progression this turn. Enter, you may reveal a Replicant Resonator not named Scheherazade you own, total cost X or less, from outside the game, or search your deck for it and put it into the field, where X is the number of times you have cast a card named the Sword of Progression this turn. If you searched your deck, shuffle it, and pay 0, put target card from a graveyard on the bottom of its owner's deck. Players may only play this ability once per turn. So I like this card a lot. It feels like they took the idea of Seeker of Friends Priscia, like that idea of like the utility kind of card, but properly split it into 2 different cards, and just wrote it so that it can't just like chain itself. So this feels like the next evolution of like Priscia Seeker of Friends kind of stuff, but it also has the nice benefit of, because it can go into the deck or outside the game, it almost kind of feels like Book of Light, Book of Dark meets Priscilla Seeker of Friends. So it doesn't just get like hard hosed by like a Witch of the Fallen Kingdom. Because if your opponent plays Witch of the Fallen Kingdom, you can just go grab the one from the outside the game, or you can go into the deck. And Replicant Scheherazade can recycle the replicants, right? So like if the replicant that you grabbed off of her gets killed, you can put it back in the graveyard, or even better, like enter in response to her own enter, tuck the replicant in my graveyard that I want to grab anyway back into my deck, and then go grab it. This card is honestly probably going to be the linchpin of any replicant deck, and I really, really like it a lot.
I'm going to say something very controversial that's going to make the chat upset.
Go for it.
This card seems like it would have been so sick like 3 years ago, Foul Timeline.
Say more.
So, just looking at the card, the overall idea of it, the overall like execution of it, it feels very much. I think I like the fact that you mentioned Book of Light. I would also refer to like back to Fox having the sideboard as your kind of like flex spot, essentially. Like we saw before, we have Scarlet. Scarlet would be an awful card to draw in the main deck because like it just is a removal spell that's useless in half situations. But having it in your sideboard is a one-of, just to bring it in with the Scheherazade, push it out. That's cool. That's a good mid-range tool. Mid-range hasn't really been like a viable strategy in VOW for quite some time. It's a lot of.
I would argue that that's not quite true. Since the evolution of the combination ban list, we've seen the rise of mid-range grind decks being successful, and so cards like this like play into that quite a bit.
I can't agree. I can't agree with that as well. Although the one thing I will say, first of all, I'm not really going to touch too much of the enter effect right now because I have no idea what the Sword of a Thousand Truths does.
Yeah.
No, I'm calling it the Sword of a Thousand Truths for the sake of this video. Anyway, put target card from a graveyard on the bottom of its owner's deck is like one of my favorite lines of text on any card ever. And this card feels like it's like the perfect like. I wish this card feels like it should have been printed before DBV Athenia, because DBV Athenia did the same thing all at once with the wind effect, put them all back. This one's just like, all right, cool, I'll get this value over time with this card. Like, that would have been so sick back when having Resonators on board for more than 2 turns mattered. So, I don't know. I just feel like it's a super cool card, and it's a card whose design I love that I don't think is strong enough or resilient enough to really make a splash right now. That's my thoughts on it.
I'm gonna let Paul go, and then we're gonna like contested roll this because this is a conversation I want to have with you on this. Go for it, Paul.
So based on this already, we're kind of getting the precedent set that the sort of progression this game means that you were going to have multiples of this in the main deck, so it's not the ruler, which means that this could potentially turn into an engine of some kind and just kind of open up your sideboard once again. It's not quite like Origins level of abusable, but it's certainly setting up an interesting situation. That also being said, the promos that we got for the first set in this cluster were poo-poo garbage in the deck that they were supposed to be running. So it could go either way, but the idea that this gets something from outside of the game and it gets progressively cheaper as you play cards, those aren't bad effects. It just depends on what you're getting. So you have to keep this card in the back of your mind.
Sure. This card to me feels like we took the idea of Priscilla's Big Show, we split it into 2 cards so that we gave it that flash ability if you kind of do the Priscilla, like cast Priscilla's Big Show, then immediately cast Priscilla, right? Of like, we gave it that potential because it can be quick cast. But outside of that, we still like took some of its inherent strength away by not making it quick cast all the time. But then you add to some of its potential in the fact that like it can go, it's not as weak to like Witch of the Fallen Kingdom. It can help you recycle stuff that might have been killed earlier. So it like has almost more flexibility than Big Show, except for the fact that it only grabs replicants. So it's like more flexibility, but within a tighter like parameter, if that makes any sense. So like the overall parameters have shrunk, but within that worldview, it has a lot more flexibility as opposed to Prisia. And so obviously the strength of this card comes down to how much strength comes from the replicants, like how good they are. And how like reusable sort of progression is. Like that's like very clearly going to be tied to how good she is. However, to get to the contested role point of Mike and I is the fact that like we are actually in a format where resonators stay on board for quite a bit of time. Like there are some decks that can kill stuff like targeted very quickly with like Hide. Hide is like the queen of spot removal right now, but there are other decks that are just like, hey, I have 3 dudes on board and they're going to be here kind of forever. And so like grinding stuff out or being able to recycle dudes that can then come back or stuff like that, you know, with Scheherazade, being able to pay 2 will to potentially put 2 bodies on board like consistently, especially considering the fact that don't forget that replicant Scheherazade could tuck a previously killed replicant Scheherazade back into the deck.
Come back out if there's some way to
and just kind of keep and just kind of keep grinding them. Like that's a lot of value to be generated over the course of the game. And so don't count this card out, I think. Obviously, unlike Prisia, when we were first playing her and we were playing her wrong and then found out like 2 years later that she couldn't do that anyway. Like you can't chain them, which takes away some of like Scheherazade's power as a standalone creature, but the flexibility she brings along with the recycling, I think is going to be very, very, very good. It also feels like a very like in the hands of a good player making the right decisions and knowing when to cast the Sherry is also going to be like rewarded, right? Because utility decks in Force of Will are always rewarded by good players making the smart lines. I mean, like look at post ban list Zeus, right? Zeus has so much flexibility, and in the hands of like the average Zeus player, Zeus can win games, but like it's in the hands of the really, really skilled Zeus players that you're just like, this is insane. Like Scheherazade feels like a very similar tool in that regard, and so I never count these kinds of cards out in terms of like being good and relevant in the meta. So that's my thoughts. Contested opinion with Mike.
Excellent contest.
So Mike, tell me if this would make this replicant Scheherazade good. We assume
drafting cards.
Sword of Progression is a 1-drop green card.
Sure.
That you can do in your upkeep, and then your Scheherazades are all 1-cost 6/7s for the entire game with quick cast.
That's not how that works.
You can only do 1?
It's this turn, Paul. It costs 1 less and quick cast if you played Sword of Progression this turn.
Right.
No, he's saying before before recovery.
Yeah, before
but you just said for the rest of the game.
I'm sorry, not the rest of the game. Excuse me, rest of the turn. I misspoke.
There we go.
Yeah, no. That I'm gonna go with the balanced effect. Thank you.
Yeah, making it once for the rest of the game would make this card bonkers.
So this becomes a 1-drop 6/7 that gets you another body, potentially on your opponent's turn. So it comes back to you with pseudo swiftness. Does this card suddenly become good?
I think so. I mean, if Sword of Progression is a 1-drop, regardless of its effect, it makes Scheherazade better, right?
Yeah.
Like, because of the fact that instead of paying 2 will for 1 card, you're paying 2 will for 3 cards. Because you play the Sword of Progression, you play the Scheherazade, and the Scheherazade gets you the body for the same amount of will investment, right? So that, to me, like, regardless of what Sword of Progression's effect is, if it's a 1-drop, that's good, right? Because it also says if a card was played this turn, not resolved. So even if they canceled the Sword of Progression, Scheherazade can Scheherazade can still do work. Force of Will has done a pretty consistent job in terms of their buy a box and pre-release promos of picking cards that make me very curious to see what's in the rest of the set. So like even before spoilers starting, they already have me hungry for like, what does this mean for the actual set itself? And so that's very, very cool for me. For the rest of the game starts a ban replicant Sherry movement. Yeah, you're right.
I know how to fix this game. We make this card say the rest of the game. I fixed
No.
Force of Will.
No, stop.
I will say,
Stop.
I will say the words. Where is it? This game. Any time that you have to count the number of times you played something in this game in a non-digital format, it makes my skin crawl just a little bit.
And we played.
I know
Perseus
we
Big Show. We'll be okay.
played Perseus Big Show. It
That's what
resolves
D6
twice.
are for.
It resolves 3 times, and then you just win the game. We used to do that. It's fine.
And then we realized, and then the judges finally were like, "Hey, no, you can't. We've been playing it wrong this whole time." And we went,
This is the
Okay.
master plan. I Spy is like, okay, you're gonna have to buy D6 to use this card, so you're gonna have to go to an LGS to buy D6. Therefore, we're gonna give them money back.
Or
7 years
you're going to
ago.
get the old starter decks from Lapis Cluster that came with the little insignia dice on them. And
"Yeah,
that's
It's all coming back.
that tertiary market value.
it's all coming back." Okay, so I do want to say a few things before we get into the next announcement. Is that, or the talk about the kind of announcement in the future, is I was thinking about it more, and I realized in doing the like tutorial videos and the shorts and looking at like the text and the CR of different text pages, this next set has 5 rulers and 5 sun children. And actually, so my thought when that first came out was, oh, well, what does that mean for like the rulers in set 1 or set 2? They literally can't use them.
Yeah.
because the
They're cut
because
off.
the text of bond and partner specifically references that they have to have the typing mentioned in the partner ability, and they all say partner Moonchild. So just, which is very like, oh yeah, that's kind of nice that like it truly is going to be a whole new swath of creativity and not how can I jam these into the rulers we already have. That's a really minor thing, but I'm just like, hey, I noticed this and people maybe didn't notice this is the fact that it specifically says Moonchild on the tri rulers. And so these new ones are going to be sun children, which is very interesting. Also means no wind light Moonchild. That is correct. We are out of luck for the wind light Moonchild.
Oh no, no.
There might be a wind light Sunchild, but not a Moonchild.
That being said, cute little Easter egg in here. So
Yeah.
the last time we saw Scarlet and Scheherazade, like kind of like evil-fied, is from back in Rhea Cluster, and it wasn't Yarlathotep, it was Scarlet and then Scheherazade who were like turned into like evil versions of themselves via time spinning.
Are we
So
gonna
I'm wondering,
see? Are we gonna see an Imul and a
Replicant
time spinning
Imul?
witch replicant? That's an
I-
idea.
I'd be very interested in this.
An Imul replicant and a time spinning witch replicant would be very, very cool.
'Cause there are some
Maybe
characters we haven't
an
seen.
IU replicant, a Welser replicant, like anything from like Rhea Cluster. That would be very interesting,
Oh, yeah,
especially
the
considering the
other
fact that
timeline.
like Olga or whatever he's called looks a lot like Gil. So like,
Well, their
that's
names got
also
their names
very
got spoiled.
interesting.
Or is it Replicant
We saw it-
Alhamat?
Yeah, replicant Alhamat. There was the like video of
Ah.
them like showing just the cards without their like text on them, and we saw their names. So yeah, that's very interesting. Oh man, ooh, replicant Imul. That's ooh. If that's what it is, if it's just like a bunch of Rhea Cluster characters being made into replicants from like the time spinning timeline, that
Where's
would
my
be
replicant?
Time.
Tigris?
I just want
Tigris
all-
replicant?
I just
Pandas?
want all the replicants. Give me replicant Valentina. Come on.
It's fine. We need
And
replicants, and then we
with
need
piercing red eyes that are just rubies.
we need replicants. Then we get Mavericks. Then we get Maverick Hunters, and then we get Mega Man. that's the line.
Mega Man reference.
Let's go. Let's go.
So we're gonna get
Okay.
replicants. Then we're gonna get Mavericks. Then we're gonna get Iceman.
Man.
The card game.
So, okay, so let's talk about the big news, which is that iSpy has announced that in every box of set 3, there will be not only a buy a box promo, but an additional pack of 5 contracts in every box, and that will be every pack will be a Twin Death Scythe, so the 69 contract, and 4 other random contracts from set 1 or set 2 that are not Aristella or Asuka's base contract. So this means Flight of the Holy Sword, Excalibur Chrono Gear, the Marvel Rare contract from set 1, Leviathan Chrono Gear, Messiah, Decree of Absolution Messiah, Extract of the Fire Moon Berserker, Grandfather's Research Project Justice, Launch of Megiddo, Mover of Worlds, Memory of Worlds, Recorder of Worlds, Divine Lightning Predator, Metamorphosis Dendrobium, Rocket Dives Pink Spider, and Soul Absorption Ethereal King. So all of those contracts, they are specifically non-foil versions on front and back. And they will be, again, a scythe and then 4 of those other 11. And this is in every box. And at this point in time, the biggest question, because it wasn't mentioned in the announcement, is will they have boosted the pull rates for contracts in set 3? I'm going to go out on a limb and say if they're willing to put an additional promo pack of cards for the contracts for set 1 and set 2 in the boxes of set 3, they've had enough time to fix the pull rates in set 3 and know that they need to. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say they probably have boosted pull rates for the contracts in set 3. So let's talk about this news. We had said a while ago, before set 2 came out, that there was a very real chance that they were not going to have time to make any changes for set 2 because of like how card production works. And so we said the biggest changes are probably going to be set 3. So to that end, what are your guys' thoughts on this being the fix? Does it hit the mark? Is there things that you wish were different about it? Do you think they did it in time? Like, what are your thoughts?
No, honestly, I think this is probably the best way they can do it at this point. The switch over from J Rulers to contracts was like obviously a huge step, and not knowing what that was going to look like, they printed differently than they had before. They didn't print differently than they had before. They printed in a kind of similar vein to what they'd printed before, with like 1 to 2 J Rulers a box. What was it, like 4 contracts, 5 contracts a box? Something
No,
along
just
those
one.
lines?
It was one per. It was 2 contracts a box.
Oh, I did not pull any of these sets. That is okay. Cool. So
Yeah,
my prediction was correct.
To your point of they printed contracts as if they were J rulers, which meant that a ruler had its front and its back in one pack, and the front was the contract. The problem being that you can play 4 copies of the contract in the deck, so you could only pull contracts with rulers.
I'm so sorry, everyone in chat. Wow, I did not know. Okay, well, then this definitely helps to solve a piece of that. The other piece that I wasn't aware of was the fact that it was as abysmal as it was.
Yeah, it was 1 to 2. It was 2 contracts per pack because you only got. Well, sorry, that's not entirely true. So you could get 1 contract per ruler pack. The Marvel Rare contract from set 1 was a standalone, but could only be in the foil Marvel Rare slot because it's a foil card. And then God packs had a secret rare contract in them, and a Marvel Rare contract in them.
Yeah. That being said, they sold a lot of PR kits.
Yeah, they did, because PR kits had 1 of every ruler in them, plus a practically guaranteed secret rare. So PR kits were the go-to kind of thing for a while.
Mm-hmm.
What a time to be online only player. Anyway,
yeah.
But geez, okay. So that actually contextualizes a lot of things, because I definitely understand that like a lot of players, even if the main strength of these new rulers is not their contracts, but the fact that they can pair up with Moon Children and have those kinds of like primo effects on top of them does seem really good. Like, even so, having the option to get 4 contracts if you want to go that route just sounds awful. But again, I think that this is going to be a similar learning lesson to what they learned when Focus. Thank you. From when they switched over from Alice Origin Cluster over to Saga, the first Saga set, this is kind of giving me that same kind of vibe where there's only one ruler in each of those boxes. And obviously that was a huge departure from what we'd seen previously. In the actual sets, the rulers were like the buy box promo, so you knew what you were getting from the get-go. And they had to kind of like reassess that strategy when they went back to like 5 to 7 rulers with tag with MSW. But tag. But Jimmy, correct me if I'm wrong here. When we went to Advent of the Demon World,
MSW was the first set to have tag in it.
After that, ADW, Assault on the Demon World.
Yep.
Got it. Okay, I can't remember things anymore. The big thing with that set, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's when we went the first set where we went back to having 5 rulers and 2 rulers in the box, I believe.
MSW had tag rulers and 2.
MSW had 7, 2 per box,
and 2. Yep.
ADW
Saga had 5.
ADW had 2.
ADW had 5 rulers, 2 per box.
And you'll think about
and then the 7th. And the 7th, we had 7 and 2 per box.
Right.
Because we had
one of them was Stan, so that
6
didn't count.
fallen. Yeah, and one of them was Stan.
Yeah. But the thing is, that reminds me a lot of that kind of like issue that happened initially.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, it wasn't corrected in the second set, but in the third set, it seems like it's going to get corrected, and they're making good on it.
The fix was reprinting the rulers in the Rebirth of Legend like subset.
Exactly.
Whereas in this, so it's the same kind of time frame. Whereas in this one, it's not a secondary product. It's like straight in the same product you're already going to be buying. Yeah. So it's the same kind of timeline.
But I do think that if like if you mentioned Greg Rumbler, correct? I am getting old man's memory. It happens. But I think that if they're able to go back and kind of like reassess this, fix the pull ratios, make good on the first ones. If I recall, ADW is one of the most well-received FOW sets in recent history.
It had Olivia, Brad, Demonic World, Wolfgang, Violet. And Sword Faria, like all of those decks were decks that people really enjoyed playing,
and I think
genuinely enjoyed them.
And a big point to why those decks were good, obviously, was not only the fact that they were clear-cut strategies that were like fairly open, like you could like obviously get other things built into it, but the core concept of each deck was still there. But it was one of the most accessible sets I think we've ever seen in this game's history, at least within recent years. If I were to,
it had some of the best floodgates. It had some of the best floodgates that like those kind of like staple cards, right? Which is the Fallen Kingdom, number 13, Necronomicon Barrier. Like those are cards that are still like sought after now.
But even the base building blocks of the decks too, like the base building blocks of Violet of the Atoms, most of them were in the normal or rare slots, with a couple of them thrown around with super rare.
For sure.
All of like everything in Olivia's set outside of like Dolly were pretty accessible. Obviously, Dolly was the only 4 of staple that you needed as a Marvel rare, which sucked. But even if you had 1, it's just like you bring it out of the deck. It's fine.
Yeah, for sure.
All of the demonic worlds were like normals.
Very easy to acquire.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I think we just need to find something like a similar kind of rhythm with this next set. Because if these decks can be accessible, I see this set being like a spike in general playability and general play.
Especially since very similarly to how ADW was a very like you can just buy boxes of ADW and build good decks, because this set has the Sun Children, which are unique to these rulers. It also has that same kind of vibe, right? It's 5 rulers plus 5 sun. So here's the thing: it's 5 rulers plus 5 Sun Children. So Sun Children will come in the packs with the rulers. So once again, it's a 5 ruler set, like by all accounts, and then it's a 5 ruler set. You will probably have 2 rulers per box, and it will be very self-contained in terms of the rulers won't like in order to play it, you won't be like, oh well, I need to go get a Water Moon Child from set 1 to really make this ruler work. Nope, they can't even play Moon Children. They'll only be playing Sun Children, so it has a very similar kind of vibe. So yeah, Paul, what are your thoughts?
I would say that I would need some clarification. We are getting a Death Scythe contract plus all of those other contracts, or just like
4?
Like we're getting 4 contracts, 4 randoms.
Yep, 4 random contracts from that pool of 11. And the reason why that is because they didn't explain it, but having someone who's got contacts all over the place in different regions, it became very, very apparent that Death Scythe had an unintentional printing mishap and was like severely underprinted in certain regions. Like a
geez.
man in Germany, a man in, I think, Singapore opened like 60 cases and pulled 2. Like, that's not intentional. Like, there's no way that's intentional, right? For that kind of thing. So the idea was like 6-9 Scythe, just something happened and Scythe was just drastically underprinted. So to massively make sure that one gets appropriately redistributed, that one's in every single pack, and then the 4 others that are random.
Yeah. So they're not foil, so the original contracts will still retain their value, which that's a trade-off, right? So like people like you and I, like we have mostly full playsets of these contracts that are foiled. So that's you know, if we moved those contracts, they would still have value, and we could just replace them with commons and still have functional reprints of those cards, right?
Right.
So there is still value retained, which is really nice for the LGS. I do think that this is exactly what the company needed to do, because I know people were getting very frustrated, especially online, about not pulling enough contracts. I certainly was very frustrated, but this is exactly what we thought was going to happen. I remember saying to several people, I would not be surprised if they just like gave us a pack of contracts in the next set, because they can, and they they care about their community and they care about their players. So it doesn't make any sense for me to just say, well, screw it, they don't care. I mean, I Spy's done it before, so they're going to do it again, and they did.
Right. Caniac, next set is the very end of February. Yes, February 24th is next set. You can actually go check out pre-orders for the next set down with Odyssey Games right now in the description down below. You can go check them out. They have pre-orders of boxes for the next set, keeping in mind that as far as we know, these contract packs are just in boxes. I imagine that's kind of the point, is to try to get you to buy boxes rather than go buy pre-release kits. They've kind of been trying to push people away from, they've kind of been trying to push players away from buying out pre-release kits now that like more places are able to hold more in-store events, while also making pre-release kits more enticing to encourage you to go play in pre-release events at your store. So I would imagine these contract packs are just in the main boxes, but you can go check those out in Odyssey Games right now. Yeah, my big takeaway is kind of like, with, like you said, with contracts, with them being non-foil, this does mean that like those of us who have them already foiled retain some value. It has some additional bonuses to those of us who are the secret rare collectors, in the fact that we really truly only need 1 of each secret rare now, because we can just like replace the 1 of in our playset that is our secret rare with a non-foil one, and then just like keep our secret rare contract like in a like top loader essentially, and then like when we cast the contract, just like put it into the field and put our secret rare top loaded on top of it, so like we always have access to the secret rare artwork. So like it almost kind of bumps up the value of the secret rares a little bit, because those of us who have multiple of them can like feel free to just get them into the community, because we really only need 1 now. So that's interesting as well. The biggest thing to me is the fact that like this is on top of those pieces too. People like me who already have our full playsets also get to serve the community through product we were already going to be buying, because like we open about 17 boxes worth of product for the channel every set. Paul and I think Paul's missing like 4 contracts total. So like, and I have a full playset. So guess what all of those non-foil contracts are going to do? Flood back into the community, right? Of really just being able to get those into people's hands. And so that's one of the reasons why I almost kind of like the way this is being done, as opposed to the Rebirth of Legends fix. Don't get me wrong, Rebirth of Legends was an amazing supplemental set, and had the added bonus of having that box stopper in it. But this is a fix within a product that I was already going to be buying. That's not a secondary product released at the same time. It's just like pure added value to be buying products.
Like a total
and
bonus.
That to me is like, it's just a total free bonus.
Yeah.
And that to me is kind of like the best part about this. And again, the speed of it, right? Paul, you and I played Kaijudo, you and I played Yu-Gi-Oh together, trying to consider, hey, company, the community has expressed concern. Can you try to fix this within 6 months? I can't imagine Wizards or Yu-Gi-Oh or Konami making this drastic of a community-directed response this quickly.
Yeah, like Wizards would have just printed like the contracts in a $1,000 proxy set where you couldn't actually play them in a tournament. But you could have copies of the contracts, $1,000 packs with 4 random contracts in them.
It's okay. They'll be in the megatins at the end of the year.
Yeah, so to me, this is...
Oh, that's a core memory. Thanks, Paul.
That's me processing my own trauma with you.
Yeah, there you go.
Thank you. I'm glad we could trauma bond like this from Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yeah. So to me, like, this is just another notch in the belt of like, we all know that companies make mistakes, and we're well versed in iSpy and Force of Will Co. before iSpy took over making mistakes. But quite honestly, since iSpy's taken over and really like gotten their handle on things, their reaction times to making genuinely good fixes to mistakes or like being responsive to community's feedback has been a real big boon to this game. Like I told our locals, I was talking about this announcement when it hit, and even talking to like players who aren't foul players, talking about like, this is the problem, this is how the company's fixing it this fast. Players were like, wow, that's kind of crazy that they're fixing it that quickly. Like, it is a boon to them, right? And I think it shows commitment on the side of Falco or iSpy. I mean, I will say, obviously the ideal is that these kind of mistakes don't happen, right? And the hope is that, like, they can, like Mike said, they can take this as a good learning experience, especially with their new producer that we've seen on the YouTube videos, like that he can really like take this and kind of think about it more so we don't have these mistakes happen. But I'd rather we have a mistake and fix it quickly than just continue to have mistakes. Right? So I'm a glass half full kind of guy. So like, could the glass have been full? Yes. Is the glass empty? No. Cool. We'll move on. Right? Someone's bringing me another glass. Like, it's gonna be okay. Like, it's that to me, I think, is the biggest takeaway from this. Is that I think it still shows that iSpy cares about the community. iSpy cares about this game, and it is really wanting to put in best faith effort to own up and make corrections as needed, which is why I'm still here. A card game company that's pro-consumer. Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are my thoughts.
Imagine. Just imagine. Wow. Just look to the horizon. It'll be there. Yeah,
On
like
the dawn of the third set, I will make
look to the east.
East. Someone needs to make that meme. Rustin, you're on it.
Rustin, do it. Post it in Zach's posting.
Yeah, yeah.
But for real, like, iSpy is the most pro-consumer card game company I've ever seen. Like, I thought Wizards was pretty good with Kaijudo because they were just like handing out stuff, but that died.
Kaijudo?
They killed Kaijudo.
They were like, nah, not
been able to do that for like 9 years now, and it's been super beneficial to all players. It's a budget game. It's relatively easy to jump into. Promos at the wazoo.
Sure.
Like, this game's good.
I think one of the other things that's really important is that, like, this is happening. This contract pack, it's a very, very minor thing, right? But this contract pack is coming out presumably probably before any GPs that are happening before this coming Worlds, because they did say that there are going to be on the announcement about Worlds. They said there will be GPs like before Worlds. So presumably this contract pack is coming out before those GPs, which is great because then suddenly everyone has access to everything, and it makes sure that those events aren't pay to win, which is always nice, right? It's just an added bonus there. So that's good. Because the game is smaller, they can try to help. Yeah, for sure. It certainly encourages them. Technically, Kaijudo used to be Duel Master before the end of times. Hey, Duel Masters is still going in Japan, my guy.
There is a Big Four in Japan.
Yeah.
And Duel Masters is slotted in really nicely.
Yep. So, yeah, I don't really have too much more to talk about. In all honesty, that was kind of the big point. Need winter online GPs. They have talked about that they are working on doing online GPs again, which is exciting. If you haven't already seen, we have announced the dates for FowFest 2023. It's going to be the last weekend of Japan. The last
weekend of Japan. Let's go.
Oh no, the last weekend of October in 2023. We're going to be back at Kalamazoo. You can check out the information for that over on our Facebook page. You can find the event for that. You can also book your hotel room now if you're planning on coming. Keep in mind that it doesn't cost you any money to book your hotel room now, and only serves to help us expand the room block and get more settled in with the Radisson. So consider doing that if you haven't already. Information on how to do that is on the Facebook page for it. So that's going to be a lot of fun. But yeah, just kind of dig it into 2023. We got rulers that we're going to hit up. We got new decks to talk about. Spoiler season's probably going to start the next couple weeks. Things are good, man. 2023 is off to a good start. I mean, I'm here for it. Great Grumbler's got his room already. Great.
Perfect.
See you there, bud. Any closing thoughts, gentlemen, or should we just end it early for tonight?
I mean, I've got nothing else, man. I've already given my 2 cents. I think my last 2 cents is just put the J rulers back on the back of the rulers. But that's, I'm just going to get yelled at for being an old curmudgeon about Force of Will.
I mean, that's fine. Don't forget that set three of Hero Cluster is the end of Hero Cluster, right? So that means the end of the contract gimmick, right? Because most Jade Ruler based gimmicks are only around for a cluster. So we could definitely see a return to Judgment next cluster.
If we get next set 5 rulers, 1 for each attribute, 2 rulers in the set, the J rule set is on the back, I might consider coming back. Let's just put that out there.
For sure. Well, you're going to come back anyway because you have to play in Worlds.
That's facts, you're right.
So
it's okay, I'm just borrowing cards. Anyway.
There you go. Paul, any closing thoughts?
I just feel like I'm in this little holding pattern. We haven't had locals in 2 weeks because of Christmas and because of New Year's. So I'm literally playing at McDonald's with my people because I need this game.
You're on vacation this week, right?
I'm also on this vacation this week.
You should come down to locals on Wednesday.
That's a lot of pressure
New York, Paul.
on the stream.
I'm just saying you could. I'm not saying you have to. Just offering it to you, my guy.
Do I owe it?
Paul, you're on vacation? Come to New York.
Yeah, why not? Why not?
Why not?
Here's an interesting question for you guys. If the game ended up getting its own anime adaptation, what do you think they should do first in terms of the story? I mean, you start with Grim Cluster.
Yeah, correct. Just adapt the old manga and then just continue it from there.
Gotta get my boy Grim. It's the foundation of everything. Although maybe you start with do you start with Alice Origins Cluster because it's technically the earliest?
No.
Let's see. This opens another box of what kind of adaptation do you want for this game?
Sure.
Do you want a 1-to-1 adaptation of the lore as an anime? Do you want something that's original that uses the same kind of rules that also spins off into its own set?
No, actually, I want a Yu-Gi-Oh-esque game where it's just Jeremy is the protagonist with a dual disc full of Force of Will cards, and he puts them onto his field, and that's the whole
Go.
show.
Let's go.
He's got a game gun. Okay, he's got a game gun and he shoots the cards out of.
Oh, he shoots the cards out. I forgot about the game gun.
Yeah, I would like to see I would like to see an online gameplay engine this year for sure.
Oh no! Wait! No! I got it. It's Yu-Gi-Oh GX, but it's Force Wheel GX, and Jeremy is the principal of Ruler School.
Sign me up.
My
And
name
everybody
Dr.
is like-
Evelyn Franklin, everyone.
And
Welcome to Fusion's class. They're garbage in this season. Don't play them.
what's
Those are Cyber
Fusions?
Dragons.
No. Welcome to contract class rulers.
The gloves
Well,
just glow.
Before
and
we
then
get before
It's
we
me,
get
Professor.
too crazy,
It's
I am
me,
gonna call
Professor
it here for us
Finnegan.
for the night.
I'll teach you divinity.
Thank you all so much for watching. This has been myself, TMO73, and I'm joined as always by Mike Rance
It's me, Mike Grants, Professor of Jank class.
and Paul Reisman.
I'm Professor Reisman. Welcome to Olivia class.
And until next time, class dismissed, and Happy New Year,
Olivia is
everyone.
the best
Happy New
ruler,
Year,
so
y'all.
that rank class.